Hi, I'm Joshua Carving, and welcome to another Death Battle prediction video. But first, we have Magneto versus Tetsuo. Honestly, that was a very enjoyable time. To first start off, the kind of expected parts was just the level of, I don't want to say downplay, but, they gave a lot, they didn't give a lot of leniency to Magneto, which they kind of did but didn't. They basically made the argument that he's only really on a universal level with his protective barriers. I can see why they would do that to kind of make the fight seem a little bit closer. But ultimately there are plenty of times where Magneto has actually physically taken hits like that, even without his barriers. He should be universal anyway, really. But ultimately, it was a fine concession, and the animation was stellar. Just all the interaction between them. At the very end, it was a very much more somber note, it kind of goes very well in tune with how Magneto actually is himself. He would see someone like Tetsuo and very much pity them, but it also wouldn't stop him from putting their ass in the ground. It's kind of... I actually am curious how people are going to interpret between this and Jonathan versus Tanjiro, which is the more sad ending for the fight. Because Tetsuo versus Magneto was a lot more somber, and while Jonathan versus Tanjiro was more traditionally sad, you can also argue that it actually went too far in the opposite direction and made it kind of goofy with more or less Jonathan's big streamy tears and stuff, and it'll be an interesting discussion, and we might even have more on the way. But yeah, it was stellar. The music was great, and then the next time, holy shit! When they told us that there would be kind of some surprises and new series in new different ways, nobody expected something like this. One of the big things that people check back on and stuff like that is the oldest character that Death Battle's ever used. It was probably some comic book character, and then it became Popeye, and now we're just going thousands of years back. It's kind of hilarious. So we have Sun Wukong versus Hercules or Heracles. I'm unsure what they're going to be going with for the episode. They'll probably mention Hercules, also known as Heracles, probably something of the sort. But we are getting purely the mythological versions of these characters. No Marvel, no League of Legends we'll go with. Sure, that has a Sun Wukong. So that's going to be very interesting. I'm 100% on board with them taking this direction for an episode for this season. This is going to be hype. This honestly should have been the mid-season finale, in all honesty. This would have been a very good one to finish off on. But let's discuss who actually wins. The interesting thing is that some of this might actually come down to abilities more than some of the stats, because they all actually... they both have very comparable stats in a lot of regards. Sun Wukong has a feat where he flipped to the edge of the universe in a short amount of time, and it was all just revealed to be within the palm of a Buddha, and then there are other interactions with Buddha that can get him to higher numbers as well. So I do think he is going to be faster than Hercules. Hercules does have comparable feats, though, so it's not going to be that much of an advantage, because I believe it is Mercury. Also has feats of traveling the universe in short amounts of time. So then we come to power. And so Hercules, it's going to be very interesting, because both of them are at least universal. The ocean, I believe, is considered its own universe. I remember hearing some rumblings of that. And then the sky is its own universe. And Hercules has had some solid interactions with both. And then there is the time when Sun Wukong... There's been 2 times where he's had shitloads of mountains thrown on him. One of them, it was basically like 3 normal mountains, but then the third one had a seal put on it. And that's why he wasn't able to lift it. So I've seen a lot of people mentioning that as a downplay method. But he once the seal was taken off, he was just like, oh, get this fucking shit off me, and just tossed them all aside like nothing. So it was specifically the magical seal that was doing that. The other time he had mountains put on him, each of those 3 mountains were like full universes. So he was able to stand 2 of them, and then once the third one was added on, that's when he like buckled under it. So in terms of speed and strength, we might have the situation where Sun Wukong is a little bit ahead, but not honestly by that much. Like, it's enough that the abilities and equipment could end up turning things around. Unfortunately, I don't think they do. Sun Wukong has a lot of abilities. He can basically clone himself, like, with a single strand of his own hair. I would not be surprised if there was a kill shot in the fight for a fake out and it was just a clone the whole time. I would not be surprised. He has erased his name from the Book of Life and Death, making it questionable if he can even be killed, which will come up next with Hercules' main thing that people are arguing for him, which is the Hydra Venom arrows. Kills anything in a hit, and immortal beings, when hit by them, want to die. So, sure, we can make the argument that if Hercules hit Sun Wukong with that arrow, he would want to die. He doesn't have any method of doing that himself. So I really think that we are kind of in a situation where Sun Wukong can eventually kill him. I think he has enough of the stat advantage that he should be able to take him down. Eventually, even if. But I don't think Hercules actually has very many methods himself of bypassing the fact that he's removed himself from the cycle of life and death. It would require an argument like, oh, he's beaten Thanatos, who's the concept of death, so he should be able to cause death to those beyond it, which is hilariously extrapolation and kind of borders on sophistry on the part of people who are arguing in favor of Hercules. Which then you get some of the more non-factor things, like people argue that the Nemean lion pelt is going to be a big factor, but it's like, that only really does anything against bladed weapons. He still beat the shit out of the lion and killed it just by, like, strangling it. Like, I don't even think Sun Wukong uses, like, many bladed things, so. And, yeah, so I think that more or less sums up my argument, is that Hercules is strong. He's definitely going to be doing a lot better here than a lot of people would have thought. Once people started looking into the cosmology of both the Greek and the Chinese pantheons there, it became a lot closer in that regard, because both of them, like, when you look at some of, like, the Greek stories, you don't necessarily see universal feats. You might see things as like, oh, he lifted a big thing. Like, sure, he lifted the sky, but what does that mean? Is that, like, lifting the atmosphere? It's like, no, that's a whole universe. So, fair enough. So it more or less became a lot closer. Not close enough, unfortunately, I don't believe. So I think that the winner of this one is going to be Sun Wukong. And yes, I will see you guys for the next one.